However, my primary concern on this day is not those who sit on the sidelines out of ignorance, laziness, or arrogance, but it is for those who desire to be involved, but they sit on the sidelines because they have so scarred their image by the mistakes and sins of their past that they see themselves as a monster. Stay with me as we take this journey to our text. I like hip-hop, love hip-hop. Pray for me. I'm still working on my salvation. And I found that good hip-hop has a social message cloaked in an entertaining beat, which often represents the voice of the urban community. And then there's a popular Kanye West song out called Monster. And in the second verse of this song, Jay-Z will lead you to believe that he is using the word monster as a double entendre. Or in other words, on the surface, he's using the word monster to mean one thing, but subtly he's conveying a dual message. And so on the surface, the urban definition of monster can mean one who is highly successful at a given craft, trade, or skill. He's a monster with the bat. Means that he can hit the ball at will whenever and wherever he wants to. She's a monster on the track. It means that she's so fast that she cannot be beaten. He's a monster on the court. He's got so much game that he can't be beaten in the game of basketball. And in its entirety, this entire song appears to be about Kanye West, Jay-Z, and Nicki Minaj being monsters in the rap game, or lyrically unbeatable. However, when you listen to that second verse a little bit more intently, there's a deeper and darker message that seems to be conveyed. And part of his lyric, he says, none of you know where the swamp is. None of you have seen the carnage that I've seen. I still hear fiends scream in my dreams. Murder, murder in black convertibles. I kill a block. I murder the avenues. Rape and pillage a village, women and children. And it seems weird because he spends the majority of his 16 bars describing his dominance, but then seems to subtly slip into this dual meaning of monster as he begins to describe the sins of his past and how it haunts the view of his future. The dual meaning of monster being conveyed and defined at this moment is one who is unnatural or extreme in ugliness, deformity, wickedness, and or cruelty. And I'm not speaking about physical appearance, but I'm talking about character and spiritual morality. Stay with me. I promise you that this will all make sense in a moment. In the book of Genesis, the Bible tells us that humans were made in the image of God according to his likeness. The Hebrew word for image is tselem, which alludes to shading as if one thing is a shadow of another. The Hebrew image for likeness is emuth, which alludes to the customary mode of behavior. With an understanding of how the Hebrew language uses the words image and likeness, the scripture can be read like this. God made us as a shadow of himself after his customary mode of behavior. And the thing about shadows is that they do and move exactly as the original object does and moves. And if we are made in the image of God and after God's own likeness, it means that we were created to move as God moves, to act as God acts, and to behave in a manner that exemplifies the God that we serve. This is not a reference to physical appearance or makeup, but a reference to God's character and God's ways. That's why very rarely do you ever see anything that describes the physical attributes of God. But we always read about God being El Shaddai, the Lord Almighty. Adonai, Lord or Master. Jehovah Rapha, the Lord that heals. Jehovah Ra, the Lord my shadow. Jehovah Jireh, the Lord will provide. Jehovah Shalom, the Lord of peace. The focus is never on the physical appearance of God, but always on God's ways. And I'm glad to believe that God never wanted a physical image of him to be created because it would take the focus off of spiritual and moral imagery. Even with the incarnation of Jesus, God in the flesh, we never get an accurate or defined description of Christ's physical appearance. The focus is always on his parables, how he handles himself in compromising situations, the miracles that he performs, the sacrifices that he makes, but never on his looks. So, when we sin, when we do things to disappoint God, when we do the things that we know we should not do, and don't do the things that God has called us to do, when we don't move as God moves, act as God acts, and behave in a manner that exemplifies the God we serve, we scar ourselves in such a way that our character begins to take on an extreme ugliness and deformity, full of wickedness and or cruelty. In other words, our image no longer represents or resembles the God in whose image and likeness we were created, but instead it appears monstrous. And I'm walking slowly through this because if Jay-Z represents the voice of so many in our neighborhood, our communities, and our cities, and he appears to be telling their story, then how many people under the sound of my voice see themselves as monsters because of the sins that they've committed in their past? How many people sit in church week after week, month after month, year after year, successful in their carnal lives, but are spiritual failures because they've not renewed the spirit of their minds and they see themselves as monsters? Every time they reflect on their own spirituality, they see the scars of the people that they slept with outside of marriage. Every time they reflect on their own spirituality, they see the scars of the people they hurt with mean and malicious words. They see the scars of that line of coke, that hit of heroin. They see the scars of the marriage that they destroyed by having an illicit affair. They see the scars of the night spent in a drunken stupor or high. They see the scars of the families that they destroyed because of the loved one that they killed. They see the scars of the lives murdered because of them selling drugs to them. They see the scars of the children that they failed because they were addicted to work. They see the scars of family members that they turned their backs on in times of need. They see the scars of the financial quandary they put their families in because of their addictions to pornography and sex and to drugs. They see the scars of being a disappointment to God time after time after time. Every time they reflect on their spirituality, they do not see the image of God. They do not see someone made after the likeness of God, but they see the scars of mistakes past. They see a monster. And I'm convinced that Jay-Z is not the only one who knows where the swamp is or has seen carnage. There are people whose lives have been so messed up, so jacked up, that it is swamp-like in nature. It's just messy. There are people who have not only witnessed carnage, but they are the architects of carnage, spreading death and destruction in the lives of people everywhere they go, murdering people's careers, murdering people's relationships, murdering people's reputations, their finances, their future, murdering other people's hopes and dreams. And even after physically moving beyond what you used to do, you still hear the fiends or the victims screaming your dreams as the demons of your present haunt you with the mistakes and sins of your past. And there is nothing worse than being someone who is saved but bound, because you allow people and demons to hold you hostage by the sins of your past, and you see yourself as a monster.